So we begin with our invocation. Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Parame Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Parame Satyamayi Parame Satyamayi Parame Satyam Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyoti Aravinda Jyoti Aravinda. So let's begin with these words. The title of our talk today is The Mutual Debt. So we'll begin with this and we'll end with this and we'll see what it means in between. This transfiguration, the transfiguration of human life to divine life, it is earth's due to heaven. Earth owes it to heaven. Man owes it to God. A mutual debt binds man to the supreme. His nature we must put on as he put ours. We are sons of God and must be even as he. His human portion, we must grow divine. Our life is a paradox with God for key. So this is an oft-quoted line. Our life is a paradox with God for key. A paradox is a bundle of opposites. We want to be happy, but we are attached to our unhappiness. And there are so many contraries in our own being which trouble us, which prevent harmony from coming into our life. And the key to all this confusion and paradoxes is God. So we'll be exploring this passage through Savitri. How do we pay back this debt we owe to God? Now let's understand what is the debt we owe to God. Simply put, when God became each one of us, he left his opulence of bliss and peace and all that, and he became us. So, in a sense, he lent us our existence by forfeiting his divine truth. And we have to pay back this debt by growing back into him. His nature, our nature, he put on. And in doing that, he lent us. We pay back that debt by becoming him, by putting on his nature again. Now, the question is, how do we do this? Because every experience of ourself is an experience of human frailty, human vulnerability, uh, surface agitation, and all that. So let's look at the next screen share. Well, how do we take steps towards paying back this mutual debt? In short, how do we work towards the making the human nature divine nature? How do we work towards putting on his nature? His nature we must put on as he put ours. So this is a passage from Synthesis of Yoga. For all here seems to be a mobile, half-ordered, half-confused organization of forces. All here in the human embodiment seems to be a mobile, constantly changing, only half-ordered. It's mostly confusion. There's just half-order, half-confused organization of forces. But behind them, one can feel a supporting peace, silence, wideness, not inert, but calm, not non-living, but calm, not important, but potentially omnipotent, all-powerful, with a concentrated, stable, immobile energy in it, capable of bearing all the motions of the universe. So, Sri Aurobindo is saying that when we look at ourselves, our surface has this constantly changing flux of mind states, fluctuating emotional states, which are half ordered, half confused. But behind these fluctuating mind states, which I call the person me, behind them, I can feel with a little effort a supporting peace, a silence, a wideness, not inert, but calm, not omnipotent, not important means powerless. Normally, we feel something that's silent has no voice. But this is a silence that has an all powerful voice, metaphorically. Not important, not powerless, but potentially omnipotent, with a concentrated, stable, immobile energy in it, capable of bearing all the motions of the universe. This presence behind is equal souled to all things. So, to our own seeing, we appear to be this realm of Prakriti, mind, body, and emotion, the mobile, half ordered, half confused organization of forces. But behind Prakriti, there is the Purusha, a supporting peace and awareness. For those of us who find the word Purusha too esoteric, just think of that, what's behind as an awareness in which this whole melange of emotions, thoughts, body arises and changes all the time. But behind that, there is something stable, unmoving, and always peaceful. This presence behind is equal soul to all things. So the me in Prakriti, which is nothing but fluctuating mind states, is never equal souled. It always has preferences, always prefers this to that. But this presence behind, which is more truly who I am, is equal soul to all things. The energy it holds in it can be unloosed for any action, but no action will be chosen by any desire in the witness spirit. Witness spirit is this backdrop awareness, the Purusha. So this Purusha is free of all desire, whereas the Prakriti on the surface is teeming with desires. A truth acts which is beyond and greater than the action itself, or its apparent forms and impulses, beyond and greater than mind or life force or body, although it may take for the immediate purpose a mental, a vital, or a physical appearance. It is when there is this death of desire and this calm, equal wideness in the consciousness everywhere that the true vital being within us comes out from the veil and reveals its own calm, intense, and potent presence. For such is the true nature of the vital being, Pranamaya Purusha. So, Purusha we've understood as awareness, the awareness behind our emotions and life motives is the Pranamaya Purusha. Similarly, the Purusha behind our thoughts, the mental Purusha, is the Manomaya Purusha. So, when we can step back into awareness, we become conscious of our true vital being, which is free from desire, which is tranquil, strong, luminous, many energied, and obedient to the divine will, egoless, yet, or rather, therefore capable of all action. So, this awareness in the background, it's not personal to me. It doesn't have a sense of I in it. And because of that, it's capable of all action, achievement, highest or largest enterprise. The true life force too reveals itself as no longer this troubled, harassed, divided, striving surface energy, but a great and radiant divine power, full of peace and strength and bliss, a wide-wayed angel of light with its wings of might enfolding the universe. So what Sri Aurobindo is saying here is that in our frontal being, there is this brew of all kinds of desires, emotions, thoughts, etc. But behind that frontal being, there is a space of awareness of the Purusha. And when we step into that, we become conscious of a part of ourself which is equal soul to all things, which is untroubled, which is never wounded by the storms of the emotions. And beautifully in Savitri, he calls this part of us the immortal in unwounded self. So, one important step in moving towards our divine nature is to become aware of this, which is already there, but we are not conscious of it. So, how do we become conscious of it? Like always, by looking for it. First of all, are we convinced it exists? Because you'll hunt after something if you're convinced that it exists. So, are we convinced that it exists? Is our Guru's word to us enough for us to be convinced that it's there? He's told us, even if I've not experienced it. Let me take his word for it. So once I'm convinced that it exists, then I start looking for it. How do I start looking for it? First, a very important tool would be to witness my breath, because that's the easiest to witness, because I'd have to be pretty insane to have an aversion to my breath or a craving for my breath. The breath is the most neutral thing in my being, right? So it's easy to witness. So witnessing the breath gives me a starting point. It poises me in the witness consciousness. And later on, like we did in class yesterday, we extended to from our breath, we start becoming aware of our thoughts. Instead of thinking thoughts, you take a poise of being a witness. You step back and watch a thought. Like you're a scientist and thought is the specimen, and you're watching the specimen under the microscope of your awareness. And with a little practice, you'll be aware that thought is there, but I can actually feel myself as something outside thought, not touched by thought, not involved in thought, so to speak. And with a little more practice, this can be extended to body sensations also. So, a personal sharing, when I had years ago gone to do my Vipassana course, and there is a time when you have to sit for 1 hour without moving. And they say choose any posture, but you'll meditate for 1 hour without moving out of it. So sitting in Vajrasan, Veerasan for 1 hour, no problem at all. So I challenged myself by sitting in Padmasan because I know I've never sat an hour in Padmasan. So half an hour passed, cool, 40 minutes, pain started. A few minutes longer, the pain in my legs was excruciating and there was pins and needles and numbness. But I'd given a promise to the space that I wouldn't move for an hour. So I sat and I just watched. Now, to my utter bafflement, because it was the first for me, just before the 1 hour bell rang, I suddenly sensed, yeah, there's all these unpleasant sensations here, but there's a part of me which is completely not like normally. If you feel an unpleasant sensation, you just feel you are that. There's no question of you not being that. But it was such a concrete experience that I am outside these sensations. They are not really me. I don't know if this can make sense to you till you explain it. And the moment that happened, whoosh, there was a rush down my legs. All the pain released, and I could have sat for half an hour more. When I unfolded my legs, there was no pain, no pins and needles. So, this awareness is the key to everything. If we can bring that awareness to our physical sensations, it's the best healer. And if we can bring it to our emotions, we are out of the pain of emotions. If we can bring it to our thought, we are out of the pain of thought.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Ma'am, there's a lot of focus on human aspiration, and we are the awareness, the watcher, the Sakshi Bhav. So once if we become that, or we go back to our original nature, then what? Then how do we live in this human form?
So, Param, we should ask that question when we go back to our original nature. The aspiration is there because we aren't one with our original nature. It's like there's an aspiration to climb Mount Everest, till I've climbed it. When I've climbed it, that aspiration is fulfilled. Maybe some other thing will come. So, human aspiration has its place till we find ourselves. After that, what will happen we'll know only when we reach there. Yeah, but this aspiration is to take us to our source, to our origin.
Okay, then I got to wait.
Yes, we all have to wait. So these are Mother's words. You see, only the one who is watching the play is not worried. She's metaphorically telling us a play is happening on stage. The director who's watching his actors play is not worried. He's witnessing and he's the director because he knows everything. He's written the script, what is going to happen, and he has an absolute knowledge of everything. Everything that happens, everything that has happened, and everything that's going to happen. It's all there as one presence for him. This director is the God presence. So that God presence is not outside us, it's within us. So the Upanishads say that what the Veda of the human heart knows, if you take all the Upanishads together, what the human heart will know will exceed the knowledge of all the Upanishads. So there is this presence in us which knows everything, but the surface is like the actors in a play who don't know the script. Of course, in a real play, actors know the script, but imagine for the metaphor's sake that this is a play in which the actors don't know the script. So, and so it is the others, the poor actors who do not even know. They do not even know their parts and they worry a great deal because they are being made to act something and they do not know what it is. This is something I have just been feeling very strongly. We are all acting a play, but we do not know what the play is, nor where it is going, nor where it comes from, nor what it is as a whole. We barely know imperfectly. What we are is imperfect, and so we worry. But when someone knows everything, so the human nature is the actor in this metaphor. He's always worried. It's Prakriti. But the divine nature is the director who's watching the play. But when one knows everything, one can no longer worry. One smiles. He must be having great fun. But and yet we are given the full power to amuse ourselves like him. How are we given that power? When we become one with him, we'll also, like him, just laugh at everything because we know that the actors are not going to come to harm. We simply do not take the trouble. So there's a beautiful quote: the grace of God will never take you to a place where the grace won't protect you. The grace of God will always take you to a place where the grace will protect you. So the director knows that, but the actors don't, so we worry. So the solution is to shift from being the actor and even while acting, simultaneously take the stance of the director, who's just watching all this as the transcendent witness. So now, that is one way. That's the way of Gyan. That's the way of uh, moving towards our divine nature through wisdom. Then there is also the uh, God nature. So the God nature is moved towards through wisdom and through the process of devotion. So Gyan and Bhakti are two ways, and all of us have to finally come to a place where both meet. So now we go to the path of devotion. Earlier, we explored the path of Gyan, stepping into the witness. So Sri Aurobindo says, again, this is from Synthesis, for there is concealed behind individual love, obscured by its ignorant human figure, a mystery which the mind cannot seize, the mystery of the body of the divine, the secret of a mystic form of the infinite, which we can approach only through the ecstasy of the heart. Behind individual love, I love my parents, my spouse, my children, but behind that is concealed a mystery which the mind cannot seize, the mystery of the body of the divine, the secret of a mystic form of the infinite, which we can approach only through the ecstasy of the heart and the passion of the pure and sublimated sense, and its attraction, which is the call of the divine flute player, the mastering compulsion of the all beautiful, can only be seized and seize us through an occult love and yearning, which in the end makes one the form and the formless, and identifies spirit and matter. It is that which the spirit in love is seeking here in the darkness of the ignorance. And it is that which it finds when individual human love is changed into the love of the immanent divine incarnate in the material universe. So here he's saying that all of us have somehow or the other felt love in whatever deformed human way we feel it. But this is a defamation of a hidden mystery. Yajnavalkya says it beautifully when he says that you think you love the wife for the wife, but you love the wife not for the sake of the wife, but for the sake of the self in the wife. You think you love the husband, but you don't love the husband for the sake of the husband. You love the husband for the sake of the self or the divine in the husband. So, really, all our individual, I think I'm loving, suppose I love a person A. It's really the divine in me loving the divine in that person, but I'm not aware of it because in my ignorance, it gets distorted. It's like those of us who know a little physics. If you have a glass slab and a ray of white light goes through it, the glass slab is the refracting medium which bends the light. The light going through is the light of the divine, but in the refracting medium of our mind with all its ignorance, that divine love gets refracted into individual love. The mystery of the body of the divine, the secret of a mystic form of the infinite, which we can approach only through the ecstasy of the heart and the passion of the pure and sublimated sense, its attraction, which is the call of the divine flute player. Krishna represents the call of the flute, the call of attraction of the divine to the human soul. The mastering compulsion of the all beautiful can only be seized and sees us through an occult love and yearning. How beautifully and accurately is written it. This compulsion of the all beautiful can only seize us and be seized by us through an occult, a hidden love and yearning. This love and yearning, the mind is incapable of it. Our surface emotions are incapable of it. But sometimes when we feel that tug from deep within, it's the occult love of our psychic being which can seize and be seized by this all beautiful. So, those of us who felt it will notice that its intensity is very, very different from any love that we felt for anyone human. And it's a very mysterious feeling because it baffles your mind. You feel like, what am I so in love with? What am I so enraptured with? It's like a faceless face, and your mind can't wrap its mind around it. It's like I share this story often. I used to take before the pandemic yoga camps to Pandi, and when I took one group of teenagers there, the first night at the Samadhi, this child came back to park and wouldn't stop crying. And between sobs, she told me, you know, I think I'm going mad. I'm just thinking of mother's picture and crying. But I must be mad. I don't even know this lady. How can she evoke this kind of emotion in me? And she kept fighting the emotion, not understanding it. But we can't understand this kind of love with our mind. It's something that comes from beyond the mind and beyond the emotions. It's an occult love. Through an occult love and yearning, which in the end makes one the form and the formless, and identifies spirit and matter. It is that which the spirit in love is seeking here in the darkness of ignorance, and it is that which it finds when the individual human love is changed into the love of the immanent divine incarnate in the material universe. Again, synthesis of yoga. It is possible so to turn life into an act of adoration to the Supreme by the Spirit in one's works. For says the Gita, he who gives to me with a heart of adoration, a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or a cup of water, I take and enjoy that offering of his devotion. And it is not only any dedicated external gift that can be so offered with love and devotion, but all our thoughts, all our feelings and sensations, all our outward activities and their forms and objects can be such gifts to the eternal. So beautiful. So in the Gita, what Krishna is really saying is that the external form of the gift is not as dear to me as the consciousness with which it's offered. So it's not just physical things that we can offer him, but we can offer him all our thoughts, all our feelings and sensations, all our outward activities and their forms and objects can be such gifts to the eternal. Now, the rational mind will say, but it doesn't make sense to me. If I give mother my thought of I have to do X, Y, Z today, what is the gift in it? I have to do it. What is mother going to do with it? But it's not about that. I can have that to-do list of I have to do A, B, C today. But when I offer it to mother, I offer it out of a space of let me be conscious of you when I do A, B, C. Somehow let it fulfill your purposes in me and in creation as I do ABC. Let me do it for you, not for the ego. So, also with all our feelings, I may be feeling angry, fearful, jealous. And then you say, what's the point of offering mother the dirt of my being? But that's precisely what mother wants. The mother wants the dirt of my being also to be offered to her so that she can transform it into gold. It is true. We'll look at this a little more in detail in a bit because it's an important point and it's something doable by all of us. Maybe all of us can't feel the awareness space or whatever behind, but this is something which is very doable by all of us. It is true that the special act or form of action has its importance, even a great importance, but it is the spirit in the act that is the essential factor, the spirit of which it is the symbol or materialized expression gives it its whole value and justifying significance. Or it may be said that a complete act of divine love and worship has in it three parts that are expressions of a single whole. A practical worship of the divine in the act, a symbol of worship in the form of the act, expressing some vision and seeking or some relation with the divine. So a puja, doing the arti, is the practical worship of the divine. A symbol of worship in the form of the act expressing some vision and seeking or some relation with the divine. If I do it with some feeling, that same arti becomes different. An inner adoration and longing for oneness or feeling of oneness in the heart and soul and spirit. So one is mechanical, one is adoration for the divine, and that adoration paves the way for a oneness in the heart and soul and spirit. It is so that life can be changed into worship by putting behind it the spirit of a transcendent and universal love. How can I put this spirit by reminding myself all the time that everything, including myself, is a seamless realm of the divine? So if everything I'm interacting with, touching, sensing is the divine, and I adore the divine, Can I bring that adoration to the way I live? Because I'm living in the body of God. The seeking of oneness, the sense of oneness, by making each act a symbol, an expression of Godward emotion, or a relation with the divine, by turning all we do into an act of worship. Last time we read that beautiful line that all that I sense, hear, touch is that which I worship. Because if I worship God, everything I'm sensing, hearing, touching is God. By turning all we do into an act of worship, an act of the soul's communion, the mind's understanding, the life's obedience, the heart's surrender. So, this is a piece by a sadhak who lives this offering. So I found it very beautiful, so I thought I would share. As I sit in the ashram dining hall at Pandi, an experience familiar for many of us in the silence room. For those of you who haven't been in the dining hall, there's a room called the silence room where you're not allowed to talk. As I sit in the ashram dining hall at Pandi in the silence room, offering each mouthful to she who smiles down. So there's a picture of the mother, the sadhak sitting in front of that picture and offering the mouthful, I assume, to the picture. To she who smiles down, so alive in the two-dimensional confines of her picture. I recollect the story of when Krishna met Radha for the last time in his physical body. The story goes that Krishna went to meet Radha and told her, "This is the last time you're going to see me physically because I'm going to give up my body." So she had told him that all my life I've had only one desire, fulfill that while you have this body. I want to wash your feet with my tears. So Krishna said, "Okay, if that's your desire, fulfill it." He sat and she wept at his feet. Weeping, she washed his feet with her tears. The story goes that, of course, this is not here, but the story goes there was just one part of Krishna's foot which was not washed by Radha's tears. And we all know how Krishna died by a poisoned arrow from a hunter who thought he was a deer behind the bushes. The arrow apparently touched that part of Krishna's foot which was not washed by Radha's tears. So, of course, that would be Krishna's Leela that he didn't allow Radha's tears to wash that part of his foot. Because if her love had washed that part, there'd be no way that the hunter's arrow would have pierced him there. So, continuing with this piece, weeping, she washed his feet with her tears. Krishna blessed her so that time would stand still for her and she would be eternally poised in that moment at Krishna's feet. So apparently, for Radha, time stood still. Her eternal now was that moment washing Krishna's feet. Coming back to the sadhak, a prayer arises that I too may be suspended forever in that poise of offering in the dining hall. Sitting here in Partho's session, I offer my stance of sitting. I offer each mind moment with the words, I experience this for you. A faceless love sweeps all the offerings into a joyful embrace. The redemption of each experience lies in this offering. My hands dig into the earth, eager to scoop any bit of it to be offered to you. I sigh in despair as I see the poor quality of the offering. You smile and graciously accept. In that acceptance, mud changes to gold. I realize the difference between I offer this to you and I experience this for you. This is important. There's a difference between I offer this to you and I experience this for you. The former movement reeks of the vested interest that if I offered an unpleasant mind state to her, she would lift it off. So I offer this to you is with a vested interest that I give it to you, you will lift off my anger, you will lift off my fear. Whereas the second, when I say I experience this for you, the latter, I experience this for you, is an unconditional self-giving to the experience. It is the willingness to experience any wave of Prakriti for her. It is the being's assent to be that unconditional stream which accepts any psychophysical drama that her light projects onto it. Not because the screen wants to shine, but so that her light is manifested and her unfathomable purposes served. This last paragraph is important. Let's go through it very minutely because it's something doable for all of us. So, all of us know about this. I offer this to you. I'm feeling angry. Mother's mantra is remember and offer. Remember me and offer it to me. But we offer it with a selfish motive that it's unpleasant to feel it. If I offer it to mother, she'll take it away. That's a half offering. A deeper offering would be a willingness. I assent to experience this fear for you, this anger for you. I know I'm not this anger or this fear. But if you choose to let this wave of Prakriti flow through me so that you can transform it in my Adhar, I give myself to it. I'm experiencing this for you. It is the being's assent to be that unconditional screen which accepts any psychophysical drama that her light projects onto it. Not because the screen wants to shine, but so that her light is manifested and her unfathomable purposes served. So just remember this. Whenever you're going through something, step back, watch it, don't fight it, don't resist it, don't wish it away. Just feel mother in the heart and say, I couldn't have felt this mind state unless you willed it to come to me. God's grace will never take me to a place where God's great grace won't protect me. So I assent to experiencing this for you and offer it to your transforming hands. Lift it off if you will, let me stew in it if you will, but I completely and unreservedly give myself to experiencing it for you. If there are any questions, we can take them up or we go ahead.
This
Yeah.
Anjan,
Yeah.
reading what we just read, sometimes we do certain things which are not correct, and then we experience a sense of guilt. Now we are saying offer it to the mother, or to say that, okay, mother, you want me to go through this, the second type of offering. But then in that case, when he's saying that this is how Prakriti wants that emotion to flow through me, but it's arising because of my own doing. It's not that Prakriti has.
But Anjan, the point is there's no you who does. We've done this now.
No,
All that you are on the outside is Prakriti. All that you're inside is the spirit of Purusha. Where is the you? But yes, I understand that in your experience, a facsimile of a you, of an I exists.
Correct.
So, firstly, Anjan, can you hold your question? Let me go through the next screen share. If it doesn't answer your question, I'll take it up.
Sure, ma'am, sure.
Huh? But we will come back to it. It's an important question.
Um, Anahita, I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
This is Jasmine. I wanted to ask you that when we are thinking of all the offerings to the mother or experiencing for the mother, we also offer the good things to the mother. That
Of course. Of
uh,
course.
so
The
when we
good
are
things, of
offering,
course.
yeah. So when we are offering the good things, also it's an experience that we offer to the mother. That I'm experiencing this good feeling also for you, right?
Yes.
It's
Then,
not
if
only.
you, yes, Jasmine, that's a very important point. Thank you. Because if we don't offer it to the mother, we start generating craving for it. We feel it's mine, so I want to possess it. I want more of it. But while experiencing it, if I'm offering it to her, that won't happen. And while going through anything negative, if I'm offering to her, dvesh won't arise, aversion to it won't arise. So this offering will shield me to the extent to which it's authentic and sincere. Lip service, I offer it to you, not very effective. But how deep is that offering in your consciousness? To that extent, it will shield me from rag and dvesh, attachment and aversion.
Yeah. Thank you. That makes sense now. Thank you so
Hmm?
much.
Okay.
Ma'am, just one related question that sometimes when we are going through any negative emotion
Hmm.
and I offer it to the mother, but
Hmm.
I'm offering it not with the intent that we should lift it. Of course, it is there, but sometimes we offer it because we want to get along with our lives ahead, or we want to do something, some prayer we want to do, and that thought keeps interfering. So now we
Yeah,
are
so you
offering,
want to get rid of it, no, Anjan?
yeah, but because not for a selfish cause, but because I can pray properly, or I can.
But why do you want to pray properly so that you'll feel good? And this doesn't make you feel good. Prayer will make you feel good.
Yeah,
So it's fine. Right now, when we are living in the ego, we are doing everything for the ego. Let's call a spade a spade.
yes,
And nothing wrong with that. If you can't access the latter offering, do the first offering. It's better than not doing anything.
correct. Yes, thank you.
So, this is a reconciliation between the Gyan Marg, Vedanta, and Bhakti. The stress of Vedantic realization is awareness, and that of Bhakti Yoga is Ishwar Pranidhan, or a constant offering of the being to Ishwar. Yet, if you take away language, both movements are essentially one. Bhakti is offering. Gyan is stepping back and being the witness. When I'm aware of a physical, mental, or vital emotional formation, I step out of it. When I'm aware of it, I'm out of it. When the formation is naturally offered to the self, because in that moment there is no ego to covet it, an unspoken offering of the ego to the self is made. So when I'm aware of a physical, mental, or vital formation, I step out of it. Then the formation is naturally offered to the self because in the moment there's no ego to covet it. When I'm in awareness, there is no sense of I which says this is my emotion, my thought, my pain in the body. So I've stepped out of it. It's already released from the grasp of the ego. An unspoken offering of the ego to the self is made. When I offer the formation through bhakti, I cannot really offer it until I have extricated the I from it. This is important. If I'm feeling like Anjan's question, I'm feeling very guilty, and there is the I which feels guilty is very prominent, I cannot really offer it, but still I should offer it because it's a start. But it's not a real offering. If the egoistic I holds on to it, then the formation isn't really given. That guilt isn't really given or offered. Just a hollow shell of the mental thought of offering exists. Just a hollow shell of a mental thought that, yeah, mother, I'm giving it to you. Only awareness can extricate I from the formation. Until I little bit step out of guilt and I'm able to witness it, that only that can extricate the I from the guilt. Therefore, awareness is inherent in offering and vice versa. Let me explain this a little more. Offering to mother will really make sense when mother has become such an integral part of your life that out of 10 thoughts, 8 thoughts are about her. Out of 10 emotions, 8 emotions go towards her. So most of my emotions are already offered to her. When that happens, my sense of I already becomes less, isn't it? What encourages my sense of I? The constant self-regard, self-look. I am this. This will be good for me. So and so thinks of me like this. I behaved badly. I behaved good. So this constant self-absorption and self-regard is what propagates the I. Mother says, no, depressed people are very egoistic people. They are depressed because they only keep thinking of themselves. So if I'm more or less thinking more about the mother than I'm thinking about my I, and let me not be in a haste to say I am like that, because if I'm sincere, 1 out of 1,00,000 will be like that. Honestly, to say that out of 10 thoughts I think, only 1 thought is about me, 9 thoughts are about the divine. Very, very rare. But if that happens, then my I is naturally weakened, isn't it? Then when guilt arises, my I is not so prominent that it will whip up a whole psychodrama. Oh, I was bad. Oh, I was this. Oh, I was that. Because the I is already weak. Now, with that weakened I, if I offer the guilt to her, then that offering is from a death. Okay? So only awareness can extricate I from the formation. Therefore, awareness is inherent in the offering and vice versa. Both Vedanta and Bhakti Yoga aim at transcendence. Transcendence means the state of Tathagat, or that which is beyond the stings of existence. The Buddha said, Tatha Sach Gat, gone beyond. Suchness that has gone beyond the wounds of life. So both bhakti, see, one beautiful definition of yoga in the Gita is breaking our link with pain. That's defined as yoga. So in other words, a state of transcendence where we don't feel wounded by the comings and goings of life. Vedanta approaches the transcendence through a silence in which the I cannot survive, and yoga approaches it through love. So Vedanta reaches out for this transcendence by silence, watching thoughts so that I cannot survive, because thoughts are what propagate your sense of I, and your sense of I propagate more thoughts. So, but if you fall into that background silence, the Purusha, the awareness, the I cannot survive, and you're already Tathagat. And yoga approaches it through love, a self-giving, bhakti yoga actually, a self-giving of an intensity wherein no sense of self or I is left. Where I'm thinking so much about the mother that there's very little thought that can be coveted by the I. The Vedantin silence becomes a transcendent sky beyond grief. The devotee's love, the transcendence that comes from an absorption in the object of love to the point of being unaffected by any touch other than the beloved's. So again, I have a transcendence. I'm only affected by mother's touch. So, like I remember there was one person I was speaking to, he was uncanny. I mean, authentically, the only person I've seen in my life who's never bothered about people's opinions of him. So I asked him, how come you're like that? Somewhere all of us like to look good to others, and we don't like it if we don't look good to others. And he said, Anahita, what people think of me won't change my relationship with mother. So why should I care about their opinion? Because what's all important to me is my relationship with mother. If people think badly of me, my relationship with her won't change. If they think good of me, also my relationship with her won't change. So why should I invest into looking good or bad in people's minds? So that's what it is, an absorption in the object of love to the point of being unaffected by any touch other than the beloved's. When it comes to the absolute, nothing can be taught. That's Sri Aurobindo's principle of teaching, isn't it? That nothing can be taught. We can only facilitate the efflorescence of knowledge which is already there in each person. When it comes to the absolute, nothing can be taught because the intellectual mind is incapable of grasping it. I can tell you all this, but I can't teach it to you. Only your inner wisdom can teach it to you because the intellectual mind is incapable of grasping it. When it comes to the absolute, love cannot be sought, just the way the intellectual mind cannot be taught wisdom. Love cannot be sought because the emotional mind is incapable of feeling it. The vital is not capable of feeling the psychic love. Both wisdom and love have to be sensed from a space beyond the mind, where they embrace each other in the eternal pulsation of I am. Not I am Anjan, I am Anahita, just I am. The aham of the Vedantin, the aham Krishna of the Bhakti Yogi. So that awareness space, the Purusha behind the psychodrama of our thoughts and emotion is the I am Krishna of the Bhakti Yogi, is the I am of the Vedanti. They are both one and the same. So both wisdom and love have to be sensed from a space beyond the mind where they embrace each other in the eternal pulsation of I am. This is a little bit of an esoteric passage, so if any of you have questions, I'm happy to answer. Okay, so there are no questions, we can go ahead. Okay, so now, yeah.
If when we are offering to mother, hello,
Yeah, I'm listening.
but it's coming from her only. So why should we offer it back to her? If we look at it as hers itself.
Yeah, but do you experience that it's coming from her? For you, it's coming from you, na? Like I'm using Anjan, but he's representing all of us. Look at his vocabulary. I feel guilt. I have done something wrong. Is it really his experience that mother has done something wrong and mother's feeling guilty? It's not.
True. So I'm trying to say, for develop that thinking that it's not mine, it's hers. Would that
It
be the
hurts.
right?
What?
Would it be the correct way to change from the I am guilty to that guilt is not mine?
Of course. All these belong to the surface nature, which is universal, which is Prakriti. It's not you. And yeah, to start with that thought is wonderful. But the real transformation happens when you actually see that this is not me. Like in my Vipassana sit, when I actually saw that that painful sensation wasn't me, I was free of it. So when I can actually in my experience feel that separation and see that it's not me.
Right.
But if I'm identified with the thought, if my sense of I is in the thought, then the thought in my experience belongs to me. It doesn't belong to mother.
So even when we start changing, for example, the concept of evolution, if a certain situation where you handle it in a particular way, and maybe after 5 years, you handle it in a different way, both those situations are mother.
Yes, they are a less conscious mother evolving to more conscious mother.
Right. So,
Because all of us are unconscious mother in the process of evolution to becoming conscious mother.
right. So either ways, even though there is an evolution occurring, it's an evolution occurring outside of me. It's not me that's evolving.
No, I wouldn't say that because if you remember our last week's talk, the two who are one, you are Purusha, but you're also Prakriti. So if Prakriti evolves, you evolve. But you're more truly Purusha. How do I say? Okay, if you are an ocean, you are the still waters of the depth, but you're also the waves on the surface. And if you want to create an ocean which is liquid gold, as you change the surface waves to gold, metaphorically, the ocean is changing. You can't say the ocean is not changing if its surface changes. But the ocean is not just its surface waves. It's the whole depth of the still waters below as well.
So the ocean here is the Purush or
And the Prakriti.
and the Prakriti.
The Purush is the still waters, the Prakriti is the waves on the surface. And if you're the ocean, you are both. You can't, well, it's more correct to say you're more truly the Purusha because the Purusha never changes. And Prakriti keeps changing. It's really fluctuating mind state. So all of you is in that fluctuating mind state that lasts for that blank moment and changes to the next. So in that sense, you're not Prakriti.
Because the guilt comes from the when the change happens and you feel that I wish I had done this earlier, or oh, I should have done this, or I. So it's all us, which is actually not in our hands.
No, it's not. Very little is actually in your hands till you're conscious. I remember the empty boat story. Most of us, if we are not conscious of our deeper selves, we are like that empty boat. We'll be tossed around by the wind and waters. If we bang into another boat, there's no person inside. It's just the play of geography which is making us collide or not making us collide. But when we become conscious, when we become one with our original nature, then we are not an empty boat. Then there's a real conscious person sitting in the boat, which is bigger than the momentum of the waves that move it, who will move the boat as he wants to move. And that conscious person will have the power to change the waves also, not just direct the boat the way he does. But till we become that conscious being, all of us are like empty boats. We have very little control over what will happen.
Okay.
But we can have all the control. We read in that passage of synthesis that this awareness behind is omnipotent. It can do anything. But the more we are free of the ego and anchored in that awareness, to that extent, we become more free. Because it's like if a king wants to give responsibility to the minister, he has to be convinced that the minister has the greater common good of the kingdom at heart, right? If the minister only wants self-aggrandizement, the king won't give charge to the minister. The king in this metaphor is the divine. The minister is each of us. The more egoless the minister he is, the more power and charge he will have. Because otherwise, if we have a very big ego and we get the power, we become asuric, right? And the divine won't let us go down that direction.
But until then, when we are dealing with self-negation, the sense that we're dealing with self-guilt. So at this point, to see it outside of ourselves is not, unless like you mentioned, it happens in a stage of vipassana or in that higher stage where you're experiencing it. But at the thought level, it won't change then.
It's helpful, Purvi. Whatever's available to you, use it. If as yet the witness consciousness is not available, never mind. Use the realm of the mental, the mind, even that's powerful. Remind yourself, this is a fluctuating mind state. It will pass. It's not all of me. It's not the authentic me. It will pass. Anicca. It will move away. It will move on.
Right, right.
Hmm?
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Ma'am,
Okay.
Yeah?
ma'am, so right now we are Prakriti and Purusha, but essentially we're only the Purusha, right?
No. Because the Prakriti also emanates from the Purusha, right? If you revisit, were you there last time's talk? The two who
Yes,
are
yes.
one?
Yes.
So Prakriti is a radiation of the Purusha. So if I'm Purusha, I can't, it's like saying I'm the sun, but I'm not the sun rays. I am both the sun and it's like saying the sun is only the golden disk, not its rays. Sun is the golden disk and its rays, no? The rays are Prakriti, metaphorically, the disk is Purusha.
I'm a little confused now.
See, if you look at the sun, will you say the sunbeams is not the sun?
No, ma'am, but if I am the watcher, I am not the thought. I cannot experience the thought, which is Prakriti.
If
It is
you are, yeah, if you are the watcher, you will know the thought, but you won't identify with it.
so then I become only the Purusha. Prakriti is a part of me, I get that, but essentially I am Purusha only.
So in the intermediate stage, it will appear like that I'm only the watcher and Prakriti is moving past. But as the witnessing consciousness deepens, we touched upon this last time, it becomes Anumanta Bhav. The witness is so anchored in itself that it can sanction certain movements of Prakriti and it can withdraw sanction. It's the giver of sanction or the withdrawer of sanction, Anumanta. Then it can change Prakriti. So that's what Sri Aurobindo wants. It wants us to be, he wants us to be poised in the Purusha, deepen that Purusha bhav, and from there work on transforming Prakriti, not just escaping her. The old way of Buddha and all would be what you're saying. I'm not Prakriti, let Prakriti be, I'm the Purusha. But Sri Aurobindo says, my yoga begins where other yogas end. Other yogas will end with this realization that I'm Purusha. Let Prakriti be whatever, I'm not concerned with her. But Sri Aurobindo's whole yoga is about bringing heaven down to earth. If heaven is Purusha and Prakriti is earth, his whole yoga is about transforming Prakriti. That's the mutual debt. His nature we must put on as he put on ours. And how can we put on his nature with a defective Prakriti? The Purusha in us has to work on the Prakriti to transform it.
So is it to say that without anything to see, there is no watcher? So is that's what are we trying to say, that we are both the things?
Yeah, we are both the thing. We are the watcher who's creating this illusion. We are the movie screen, and the movie screen is a living movie screen in our metaphor, which is creating the movie of the person.
But without that, the screen is also useless. So
without the movie, the screen is useless. Exactly. So Prakriti is important. You said it. That's why he said dream, fact, vision of the truth, which but for the dream would not be wholly true. Remember we did those lines last time? It's a dream, fact, vision of reality, which but for the dream would not be wholly true.
So a different, maybe the correct, for me, the way I would say it, we are all of it. That means.
Of course, you're all of it. But what you are more authentically, in the sense the eternal you is the screen. The quicksilver changing you is the movie. And that is not to be taken very seriously because it's a created you. The movie is a created you. The uncreated, unconditional, eternal you is the screen.
Got it. Yeah.
So now, yeah.
Sorry. So that means at different stages of evolution, even mother body, mother as Adi Shakti, there's a whole range of Prakriti.
Yes.
So we would be very, very, very at a stage where we have yet to even, we are far away from where mother was even in her body.
Of course. But
So-
how can we even compare? Mother was the Adi Shakti incarnated in a human body. And the Adi Shakti worked for 900 years on occult planes to create a. So why are we? I mean, that's not
There's
something
no,
we should even.
that's so, therefore, the whole path of evolution is endless.
Of course, it's endless.
Okay. So it's a continuous, ongoing, as it said, the lifetimes will keep happening.
Of course. Of course.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome. So, this is the passage, the last lines of it we read in the beginning. His nature we must put on as he put ours. We are sons of God and must be even as he. His human proportion we must grow divine. Our life is a paradox with God for key. So, now we do the whole passage because it beautifully sums up everything we've talked about. The master of existence lurks in us. The master of existence is the divine and plays at hide and seek with his own force. His own force is Prakriti. Purusha is the master of existence who lurks in us and plays at hide and seek with his own force. In nature's instrument loiters, secret God. Each of us is nature's instrument, but in each of us loiters the secret God. Loiters is wanders around. The immanent lives in man as in his house. He has made the universe his pastimes field, a vast gymnasium of his works of might. All-knowing, he accepts our darkened state. Divine wears shapes of animal or man. Eternal, he ascends to fate and time. Immortal, dallies with mortality. So the immortal Purusha constantly projects mind states which are fluctuating, which are temporal. So that's the immortal dallies with mortality. The all-conscious ventured into ignorance. The all-blissful bore to be insensible. So the all-conscious played a trick on himself to become ignorant in us. The all-blissful bore to be insensible, not capable of bliss. So Sri Aurobindo gives the most beautiful definition of Maya. It's the capacity of the infinite to appear finite. It's like a special trick the magician, the infinite, has to make himself appear finite. The all-conscious ventured into ignorance. The all-blissful bore to be insensible. Incarnate in a world of strife and pain, he puts on joy and sorrow like a robe and drinks experience like a strengthening wine. He whose transcendence rules the pregnant the vast universes, his transcendent rules them. Prescient, all-knowing, now dwells in our subliminal depths, in our depths which are sealed to our seeing. A luminous individual power alone, the absolute, the perfect, the alone, has called out of the silence his mute force, the absolute, the perfect, the alone, Shiva. At an individual level, Purusha has called out of the silence his mute force, has called out his Shakti. At an individual level, Prakriti, where she lay in the featureless and formless hush. So when Mother was asked for her relationship with Sri Aurobindo, but Sri Aurobindo used to often say, no, the mother is my Shakti. The mother is Sri Aurobindo's Shakti. And the mother says that without him, I exist not. Shakti cannot exist without Shiva. And without me, he is unmanifest. If there's no Shakti, there's only the screen, there's no movie. Well, not very significant for manifestation, as Param says. The absolute, the perfect, the alone has called out of the silence his mute force, where she lay in the featureless and formless hush, guarding from time by her immobile sleep, the ineffable puissance, the wordless power of his solitude, the absolute, the perfect, the alone, has entered with his silence into space. He has fashioned these countless persons of one self. So beautiful to think that I am one of the countless persons he has fashioned of the one self that he is. He has built a million figures of his power. He lives in all who live in his vast alone. He's present in everything, and everything lives in his vast alone. Therefore, whatever I touch, see, sense is what I worship. Space is himself, and time is only he. The absolute, the perfect, the immune, one who is in us as our secret self. Our mask of imperfection has assumed. He has made this tenement, this house of flesh, his own. His image into the human measure cast, that to his divine measure we might rise. Then in a figure of divinity, the Maker shall recast us and impose a plan of Godhead on the mortal's mold, lifting our finite minds to his infinite, touching the moment with eternity. Beautiful line, touching the moment with eternity. The moment is by its nature transient. But can we fathom a moment which is touched by eternity? Then it becomes the eternal now. It's like last time he talked about a point without dimensions, an omnipresent point, a point which is everywhere, which these things which he says, it shifts our mind to another dimension to try and fathom them. A dimensionless, omnipresent point, or a moment touched by eternity. This transfiguration is earth's due to heaven. This change of our human nature to the divine nature is earth's due to heaven. A mutual debt binds man to the supreme. His nature we must put on as he put ours. We are sons of God and must be even as he. His human portion, we must grow divine. That's the mutual debt. Our life is a paradox with God for key. Our life will be full of contradiction, ironies, and they'll continue to trouble us till we find our God self. Then that He is the solution to resolving this paradox. So let's just be quiet and hear these last few lines. The absolute, the perfect, the immune, one who is in us as our secret self, our mask of imperfection has assumed. He has made this tenement of flesh his own, his image into the human measure cast, that to his divine measure we might rise. Then in a figure of divinity, the Maker shall recast us and impose a plan of Godhead on the mortal's mold, lifting our finite moods to his infinite, touching the moment with eternity. This transfiguration is earth's due to heaven. A mutual debt binds man to the supreme. His nature we must put on as he put ours. We are sons of God and must be even as He. His human portion we must grow divine. Our life is a paradox with God for key. So now let's be quiet and let's assimilate whatever we learned today. We started our class today with these words from Savitri. A mutual debt binds man to the Supreme. His nature we must put on as He put ours. We are sons of God and must be even as He. His human portion we must grow divine. Our life is a paradox with God for key. What is this mutual debt? So it comes from the understanding that all of us are secretly God, and God forfeits His divine nature of bliss and joy in becoming us. And that is His loan to us. We pay back that debt by shedding our human nature and growing into our divine nature of unconditional peace and joy. The question is, how do we grow into this divine nature? There are two ways, the path of Jnana and the path of Bhakti, which widens into works and will. The path of Jnana is to really observe the arising of yourself in the moment. You arise as fluctuating mind states, which fluctuates so quickly that there's an illusion of continuity, the continuity of a person that you think you are. But those fluctuating mind states arise on a substrate awareness which is stable, eternal, unconditionally peaceful. And if we really watch our thoughts and emotions rather than identifying with them, if we shift our identity to this background witnessing peace rather than the agitation of thoughts, then we start living in that consciousness behind the Purusha, the witness. And over a period of time, this Purusha can withdraw assent from some movements of nature, Prakriti, and they dissolve. And so Prakriti can be transformed. The human defective Prakriti moves towards the perfection of the divine Prakriti, which is the whole game of this Leela. If we do it through the path of Bhakti, then we are constantly, in a sense, obsessed with the divine. When out of 10 thoughts, 7 to 8 of our thoughts are only about the divine, then we can say we are a little anchored in Bhakti Yoga. When that actually happens, naturally my sense of I becomes very thin Because when my sense of I is strong, I'm constantly absorbed in self-regard, self-look. How did I appear? What will I get? What will happen to me in the future? What did I do in the past? And there's no place for the divine in our consciousness. But the more we forget about ourselves and put divine at the center of our thinking and feeling, then the sense of I naturally diminishes. Then even if a movement of Prakriti, for example, guilt or anger arises, there's not a very strong sense of I which makes it its own. Then that movement of Prakriti can be offered to the divine with the feeling that I experience this wave of Prakriti of fear or guilt for you, so that you can transform it in me and so universally. Any transformation of the piece is a transformation of the whole. So there's a difference in saying, I offer this movement of thought or feeling in me. That is different from saying, I experience this for you. Do with it what you like, but I'm not going to make it mine anymore. If it's pleasant, if I make it mine, I'll start feeling good. If it's unpleasant, I'll start shrinking. But whether good or bad, it's yours. Aapka aapko arpan. And when I give it with this thought, neither do I get attached to the good, nor am I averse to the bad. And this offering can take me to the samatha, the equality that the Gita talks about, and that is indispensable in our yoga. So we stop here and see you all next week.
Thank you, Anahita. Thank
Most
you.
welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Most welcome,
Thank
Raju.
you.
Most
Thank you,
welcome.
Anahita. Thank you
Most
so
Thank you,
welcome.
Anahita.
People, I was just thinking that if we manage to live anything from the Savitri classes and you feel it's meaningful to share it with the rest, here again, because we are in this space, I'll say it very clearly. Very often, the human impulse to share comes from the desire to be seen, which is the ego. So, if we are sharing from that space, and all of us, it's not bad, all of us fall into that space because all of us live from the ego, then let's not share and consume this precious time of this space. But if you have a sharing which you really feel will help people, and you're offering it to the mother and you're sure you're not offering it to the ego, just message me that I have lived this and I would like to share this. And at an appropriate time in our Savitri session, I'll give you time to share and it will help so many of us so much. Okay? All right. Okay, see y'all. Bye.
Bye.